Good evening. It's Sunday, September 11th, 2016, and exhibition games have begun in lieu of the 2016 World Cup of Hockey. This is Pucknology Writers' Room, and tonight we'll be discussing those games and what is to come in the World Cup. George Peros also joined the NHL's Department of Player Safety this week. We'll also discuss Chris Versteeg's retirement from the NLA, banishment, and Paul Gostad's actual retirement from the NHL, and anything else that you guys would like for us to discuss. Now, if you're watching live on YouTube, first off, you're a trooper because there's Sunday Night Football, there's a WWE pay-per-view, you could be streaming Stranger Things on Netflix right now. Like, there's a lot to be going on. So if you're watching us right now, it's awesome, but hey, if you're watching us on delay, we love you too. Tonight on the panel, that's right. Tonight on the panel, I am Kevin Lacey, and I am going to be pretty quiet, actually. But thankfully, I have three compadres that will bail me out as far as banter goes. Starting off with Drew Weber. Drew, how did hockey go tonight?
Hockey was tiring. Ice is a totally different monster than roller.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Up next, a newcomer to the Pucknology Writers' Room. Please welcome Slushy Jake.
How's it going, guys? How's it going tonight?
Slushy, are you over the age of 18 to be on this podcast this evening?
No.
Yes,
well, that's okay. We're going to let it...
He had a very convincing fake ID.
Exactly. And last but not least, of course, is your host of Pucknology Writers' Room, Ian Reed.
Hey, welcome to Pucknology Writers' Room. This is our 12th show. Like Kevin said, if you are watching us live right now, thank you, because there's a bajillion other places you could be, and I wouldn't blame you for not being here, but I'm glad you are. If you're listening to it, post-show on the audio, iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, thank you for that too. If you're not subscribed to any of our shows, then be sure to subscribe to our channel, Pucknology Writers' Room, as well as Pucknology Podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, etc., where you can find all of our podcasts that we do. That's After Dark. That is the new upcoming The Pucknologists podcast with Rocket and AJ. So thanks for being here. Obviously, before we start, got to say something about the date. Obviously, it's the 11th of September today. Obviously, all of us, we're probably all remember where we were when it happened, except for Slushy, who probably wasn't even alive yet. Everyone lost a lot of people, obviously, and hockey was no different. We lost a couple of people. We lost Ace Bailey, and I can't remember the other scout's name, but they're both Los Angeles Kings organization people. And normally we would, say crass things, but not today. Obviously, thoughts to anyone who lost anybody 9/11.
Mark Davis is the...
Yes, Mark Davis, thank you. So obviously thoughts to anyone who lost anyone 9/11, and obviously we want to be mindful of that. All right, so from 9/11 to the World Cup of Hockey. Guys, what have just overall thoughts? Yeah, overall thoughts so far. You have, for anyone who's actually seen some of the games, do you guys have any overall thoughts so far? I'll start with Drew.
Yeah, the games are a lot faster, a lot more physical than I expected them to be to start. With it being just like the exhibition games, they count for nothing. And with players not playing for as long as they have, I was expecting a lot slower start, maybe have games, ease into that fast-paced feel. But you look at, USA versus Canada, you look at North America, and those games are fast and they're physical, and it's fun to watch.
Have either of the other two caught any of these games so far, Kevin? I know you have some things to say about this.
I've watched Canada and the U.S. and that the first game of two. The second one was never mentioned on ESPN's great coverage. They said ESPN said come back on Tuesday for the next game of exhibition for the World Cup. Well, apparently there have been games all weekend. We wouldn't know that. Watch ESPN 3 online. But the Canada-U.S. game was a lot of fun. The first one is very physical, as Drew said. And what I really like about it is the fact that we need more of these international exhibition games. and someone's going to need to mute their computer here.
That was me. Sorry.
You're
Slushy Jake.
rookie mistake.
But for real though, I really like the exhibition format. Soccer does this, and as far as I know, it's a huge success. They've got their Champions League. They have international exhibition games, friendlies all the time. Why can't hockey do the same thing?
Word. Slushy, have you seen anything yet?
I watched a couple of highlights from the first games with like Finland and the Czech Republic, and obviously the USA game. Not like the third period of the second game with the US and Canada, but like Kevin and Drew said, they're really intense, really intense. A lot of guys giving it pretty much their all. Like Justin Abelkader just being the player he is. Just really physical games, which is good to see. Maybe not if your team's players are getting injured, but just good games.
Yeah, I really I've been really happy. I haven't missed a game yet. And I've missed games because obviously like there's two on at the same time, so sometimes I like pick the game I want to watch more. But I give the NHL a lot of credit, and I said this on After Dark, but I give them a lot of credit because they didn't screw around, man. When they made these preliminary games, they made sure that they were going to get good because the U.S. and Canada aren't going to lay down for each other. The Swedes and Finns aren't going to lay down for each other. The Russians and Czechs aren't going to lay down for each other. So all you have was, the only real non-rivalry was Team USA not Team USA, but Team North America versus Team Europe, which is, the gimmick squads. And those games were actually even pretty good, especially on the North American side, which we'll definitely get into later. So I give the NHL a lot of credit. And then now I know that there's going to be a few shifts in like partners for their last exhibition game. So I think the North Americans are going to play the Finns, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that game. Canada-Russia is obviously always a good time, so I'm looking forward to that exhibition game. I think the U.S. I don't know if the U.S. is playing the Czechs or the Swedes, but either way, that's that'll be a good game too. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this winds out. But man, they got what they wanted because these exhibition games. I mean, everyone, the intensity's there. The only person who looked terrible was Carey Price so far.
Carey, he hasn't looked that good, but with that long layoff,
10 months.
That's going to happen. And if you're Montreal, a fan of Montreal, you should not be fretting over this. You should be happy that he's working this all out right now. Of course, if you're a fan of Montreal, you're probably a fan of Canada, and then that's where your loyalties get a little split. But
yeah, and do you think here's the other thing too, like you gotta understand, like these guys skated for basically I think 2 days together before the first exhibition games. That's not exactly like usually when you have like preseason games, you have like a week of training camp first before you actually even do a preseason game. And I think the other thing is that this World Cup, the one thing that it's going to do is if I end up watching any preseason games, I'm probably gonna be bored out of my mind. Like I'm not gonna enjoy them at all.
Yeah, you're talking about the NHL preseason games?
Yeah, the NHL preseason games. It's going to be terrible.
Like those games, you couldn't pay me to take time to see those games because you have the whole split squad stuff, and it's just you're not seeing the best players. But here, you're seeing the best players. You're seeing them playing against the best players. You're seeing them at full speed, at full contact, and it's like I said, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's talk about some of the news of the past week, and there's not very much of it. Let's start with George Parros joining the Department of Player Safety. He'll be in the group of the group of guys that decides that actually has a say in the disciplinary end of things. Kevin, what do you got for George Parros?
Well, what I do like about it, one, obviously he was a pugilist when he was in the NHL, so he kind of knows what players can and cannot get away with it, or let me rephrase that. He knows what players are going to try to get away with and what they cannot get away with, and so there's a nice balance there. But the other thing is, during Parros' time in the NHL, we always heard about Parros and Douglas Murray being the two smartest guys in the entire game in terms of just their intellect and their college upbringing and everything. So having someone very educated just in general, I trust George Peros to make good decisions.
Yeah, I think that when you look at players going into the Department of Player Safety, obviously, it's nice to have these guys in there that know the tricks and know what's, they know what's over the line, because they generally know better where the line is than maybe, like if you put like Mario Lemieux in there, he'd probably just suspend everybody. So
Except Crosby.
Except for Crosby, of course. Thank you, buddy. So yeah, I think if you look at it that way, I think it's a good addition to the thing. And you said he's a smart guy. Go ahead, Drew.
Yeah, exactly. Very, very smart person, Princeton degree kind of thing. But yeah, like you guys are saying, he knows that physical part of the game. He knows where the line is. Despite racking up over 1,000 penalty minutes, I don't think he ever got suspended once. Okay,
Yeah.
So he knows what you can and can't do. He knows where it's okay to toe the line and when you've crossed it. So I think that's an excellent move for the Department of Player Safety to bring Peros in.
He knows the code.
Exactly, and he's going to do the job I think that the NHL is going to want him to do. But he's super respected by the players also. So it's got to be a win-win for both sides. I have to think that he's the perfect fit for that job. The one thing yes, this is just me being stupid on this. Anyone who participates in Movember, since George Peros had the mustache thing, do they get like a free headshot for the month of Movember if they're growing out their mustache or something?
I don't know. Let's see. I mean, he always had like one of the best mustaches in the game sure.
Oh yeah.
I kept expecting him to rob a train.
Just twirl it. All right. All right. So moving on from George Peros, we go to Paul Gostad. Officially calls it a career. This is we kind of knew this already for a couple of weeks, but now it's official. Paul Gostad to me is a guy who you could send out there to win a draw, but he wasn't very good for much else. Reminded me you could kind of liken to like Jason Allison back in the day, or even Manny Malhotra at the end, where they'd throw him out for a face-off and then he just hauled butt to the bench and let someone else on after winning that draw. So I'm not really surprised that nobody really went looking for his services. What do you guys think, Kevin?
First off, hats off to you. I thought Paul Gostad, I thought you had a great career actually as a defensive specialist.
I was like, thank
you.
Well,
hats off to you to Ian for hosting Pucknology Writers Room. For everyone who agrees, please subscribe. But Paul Gostad, me being kind of a Sabres fan as my so-called Eastern team, I have a lot of love for the guy. He's a good role player, and the one thing that I really disappointed at is he's kind of the victim of the new NHL, and by new NHL I mean anyone 34 and over is probably already out of the league, where it used to be 37, 38 years old, and it's just a matter of the speed. Gostad didn't have the speed, and so he wasn't going to get any jobs probably. I would assume that's why he retired.
Drew?
Yeah, I agree with Kevin, where he is a casualty of the new NHL, where you do see people retiring younger because it is a young man's game now. But, I mean, he may be as irrelevant as they come in terms of, points and possession and stuff like that. But you know what? You played 11 years in the NHL, and that's 11 more than me. So, take that to you.
Yeah, Drew is complaining about one adult rec league ice hockey game.
Right.
I can't even last
racked up 11 NHL seasons. All right.
By the way, for those of you listening on SoundCloud, iTunes, and Google Play, we lost Slushy Jake. We didn't just mute him, so we're
I didn't bring him on to just fire him. I just let him, and he just couldn't. He couldn't hang. I don't know what's going on.
You wanted to assert your dominance, be like, I'm going to hire somebody. So
right? Yeah, you're fired.
Oh, I realize I'm breaking labor laws. You're fired. It's all good, Slushy. I know she's still watching, so it's all good. Just some quick PTO action. We got a few PTOs out there. We got Versteeg got one with the Oilers, which I thought was interesting since he was kind of holding out for a contract. Stefan Gionta with the Islanders, Zach Boychuk with the Coyotes, and Eric Nystrom with the Blues. What say you, Kevin?
Well, first off, kudos to my boy Zach Boychuk for getting that tryout. The Versteeg one is the most interesting by far, not only because he's the most nameable player of the ones you mentioned, but just the fact that he was under contract in the NLA, I believe, with SC Bern, and got basically voided out of his deal because he did not pass a physical, but it's like he can pass an NHL physical, but he cannot pass an NLA physical, and I would love to know how that works. But
I guess they're really healthy over.
Didn't have his 3 glasses of orange juice before
That's right.
went.
Yeah.
Well, bummer for him because Switzerland's amazing.
Drew, any thoughts on? You can go with Versteeg, you can go with any of these guys. Any thoughts?
Awesome, because I was going to go with Versteeg. I think Versteeg is a great pickup with the Oilers. He had 38 points in 77 games last season, and most of that was with Carolina, which, as much as I love them, they were not good last season. And he actually, if you look at analytics of it, he contributed to the most offense. I go back to the PCS that I referenced last show, which is primary shot contributions, and he had the most primary shot contributions, which means he either had the most shot attempts or he passed to the people who made the most shot attempts. So he was a really good offensive player for Carolina. Didn't start many shifts in the defensive zone, but I mean, if Edmonton's ready to deploy him almost exclusively in the offensive zone, then good pickup for him.
Yeah, I look at the on Versteeg, I look at the Oilers and I look at what could be their potential lineup. You're telling me he can't? I mean, he's probably a third liner on that team easily. Mm-hmm. He's better than Maroon. He's better than Hendricks. I can't remember which side he plays on, but
both.
Yeah, so if he can handle, if he can play on the on that side, he's better than both of those guys. And and if you want to play him on the other side, then depending on Yakupov's season goes, he's better than Yakupov at times too. So I can't see why it's a PTO. I don't know why they just didn't give him a deal, to be completely honest, because I think that he would immediately make that team better. PTO, fantastic for him. Hopefully it pans out for him, but I don't understand why it wouldn't, because when you look at that lineup, especially that bottom 6, isn't that great still. He could easily instantly better.
And sorry,
go ahead.
Sorry, Ian, real quick. When we did our Oilers preview a few shows ago, I brought up how predictable their forward group is, how it's always a power forward on the left side and a playmaker at center and a scorer on the right. The fact that Versteeg has that, he can play it, that versatility where he can play any forward position.
Yep.
You could put him at any line, any forward position. It gives them something other than slow power forward on the left side. It's a good pickup.
Just a couple of the other ones here. I think Boychuk on the Coyotes, that could work. Nystrom on the Blues, I don't know. I feel like the Blues are really, they're pretty set up top.
You think Zach Boychuk's going to follow the entire Coyotes fan base on Twitter?
I hope so.
He has already.
He probably has already.
I'm just excited because if he gets sent to Tucson, well, first off, obviously, most pro tryout guys, if they don't make it in the NHL, they'll get signed to an AHL deal, and I expect that to happen with Zach Boychuk. So I'm excited that he's going to play for Tucson and be in the same division as the Barracuda, so I can chat with them at the games.
Nice. Gionta with the Islanders, I don't know if Gionta has anything left in the tank. I don't know.
How old is he now? Everyone Googles it.
You're going to make me look it up.
Yeah.
He is 32.
Go ahead. Oh, he's 32. Oh, his brother's older. Brian Johnson's older.
Yeah, that's who I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. It's not really like a, I think it's not as sexy as the other names that are getting PTOs, obviously. I like Nystrom. I don't know. I just feel like the Blues, man, I don't know if he can fit anywhere in that lineup with what they currently have. Slushy, I see you're back. Do you have any comments on the PTOs? Versteeg to the Oilers, Stefan Gionta to the Islanders, Boychuk to the Coyotes, and Eric Nystrom to the Blues?
Well, Eric Nystrom, you know, he wasn't put in a great situation in Nashville. Zach Boychuk, it is what it is. Christopher Stieg, I really hope he lands. You know, Christopher Stieg really didn't get the ice time in Chicago in the second go round. Really wasn't the player the Kings wanted in LA when they picked him up at the trade deadline. I hope Versteeg gets one. I hope. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Nice trim. I don't see it. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. So moving on, we're gonna get to the we're gonna get into our World Cup hockey preview. We already kind of gave general thoughts, so I'll skip that. But thoughts on the pools. Sorry, Kevin, you had a question?
Well, something on the PTO, since I wasn't on the last episode to discuss it. But this off season, it's the timing of the PTO, or the timing of the World Cup is intriguing because there are going to be more PTOs than usual because there are superstars that are obviously playing in the World Cup, and there are training camps that need bodies.
Yep.
But at the same time, you've got a huge influx of prospects this year coming from the 2014 entry draft. So those guys are pretty much going to take up AHL spots. So I mentioned Zach Boychuk probably going to Tucson. That may not be the case for a lot of these PTOs because there might not be room on the NHL or the AHL roster, and the European seasons are already beginning this week. So if you don't get signed, you might not be playing at all this year, or not be playing till at least January.
All right, so let's start with the pools. So in Group A, you have Team USA, Team Canada, Team Czech Republic, and Team Europe. Group B, you have Russia, Sweden, Finland, and Team North America. This is clearly rigged, right? Like, it's all about getting Canada and Russia to the final, or even Canada, US to the final. Like, I feel like this is just silly.
Yeah, Group A is. It's just strange that they would divvy it up like that because Group A, if Canada and US don't make the elimination round, then you've got a miracle on ice upset happening somewhere. But meanwhile, Group B is very competitive. I mean, any one of those teams except for maybe Finland, I guess you'd call the weak one on that. Even Finland has some pretty decent players, but I mean, Russia, Sweden, Finland, and North America, those are all competitive teams. So it's kind of unfortunate to think that, maybe North America doesn't make the elimination round because they're in such a stacked group. So if I were making the tournament, I would have shifted one of either Finland or North America into Group A and shipped one of the Czechs or Team Europe over to Group B.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, it just seems like it's a little bit like it's silly because I mean, obviously I have to remember how the playoff pool works, but I'm pretty sure it basically crosses over and then obviously it would cross over again. So you would get Canada and US are probably going to escape Group A, barring something just ridiculous. And
that was going to be my question, was the playoff format, because it's sad to say it because I do love hockey, but I haven't been particularly intrigued with the World Cup as much, which is weird to say because I think Olympic hockey is the best hockey you could possibly watch, period. Mm-hmm. But yet the World Cup is just not grabbing me. So I would love to know what the playoff format is. But I do think, as Puck Guy mentioned on the chat, it's the world cash grab of hockey. And if it's not Canada-US, do you guys think that's a bad thing for the World Cup? Or if it's not Canada-US, one of those two teams and North America, do you think it's bad if any other team advances?
Oh yeah, I mean, no one's. I don't think anyone's. Obviously, those are going to be. It's about ratings for sure, and it's about this tournament. They want this tournament to make a lot of money because this is a this is a thing run by the league. This is going to count towards revenue for the entire year. This is going to be, this is going to determine what the salary cap is next year. So I think that obviously, yeah, they do want, as many people watching so they can soak advertisers and I think people, it's in Canada. I think even in Toronto, I think you'll still have people that would go to a Sweden-Russia final, but it's not going to be as insane as what it would be if it's Canada versus somebody, or the US versus somebody, or North America versus somebody, or a combination of the three playing each other. Obviously that's best case scenario for them, because it's obviously people want to watch their country win. I mean, there's guys like me who will watch regardless of who's playing, but when you have national pride on the line, and then I think it makes people more excited for it. And that's the Olympics too, though. I mean, let's not pretend like this is just to the World Cup. Obviously having in Salt Lake, if it wasn't Canada, US, Vancouver wasn't either Canada or US, I mean, that's just as big as a disaster from a rating standpoint.
Yeah, but I think what I just figured out why I'm disinterested with the World Cup, in that it's really only focused towards the North American teams. If Sweden wins, they'll be happy, but it doesn't really grow the game, because the game's fine in Sweden, and the game's fine in Finland, and the game's fine in Russia. They're trying to grow the game in USA. That's the bottom line. And the Olympics, I feel like at least it's a global event where they put all the nations on the same pedestal as the USA is in the World Cup. So I would like to see it benefit the US, because, hey, I live here. Come on, I want hockey to grow. But
yeah,
it just seems like the coverage is just so biased towards that, or the favoritism is so biased towards that.
Well, I mean, I guess, but who's covering it, right? I mean, it's obviously, if you're watching it on Sportsnet, there's going to be a Canadian bias. If you're watching it on ESPN, it clearly has a pro U.S. stance. When you have guys like what was it, Brett Hull and Chelios? Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that hit. Nothing wrong with that hit at all. ESPN. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, but I think that the other thing that I hear, is a lot of people saying, like you said, it's not the Olympics. It's not the Olympics. You're right. It's not the Olympics. But if this continues to be a thing and it doesn't wait 12 years before it happens again,
right?
Then, because I remember when, back in the 80s, man, the Canada Cup was a huge deal. Huge. It was a huge ratings winner for everyone because it happened on a regular basis. Now that the World Cup's been kind of gone for 12 years, it's going to be hard to build that up. And obviously, because of coming in, they had to make the gimmick teams, and we're going to get to that. Obviously, that hurts the international feel of it too, because you have players that are basically saying, you have guys that are basically saying, yeah, well, my team's an all-star team. I don't really have a dog in the fight. To which I say, well, your crappy country would get destroyed anyway in these teams, but that's just rude of me. Yeah,
no, you're right. Because the 96 World Cup was amazing. I loved the 96 World Cup.
Right.
But that was 20 years ago. And we've had one since then?
Yes.
Or in between. Yeah. So.
No, and that's kind of my thoughts too. I mean, the other pool is really tough, and I think that it's unfortunate because I think like North America, that's an exciting team. And yes, they've done really well in their exhibition games, and yeah, these exhibition games have played hard, but they've beaten Team Europe, which I'm not going to totally, we're going to get into like individual teams as we go, but I want to see them play a Finland, a Sweden, a Russia, a USA. Like I want to see that, because I think that is where you're going to see, what this team is actually made of. So I don't know. I mean, but I really like this North American team. Before we get like into the individual teams, what do you guys think of the SAP patch on the sweater? Slushy, you haven't said anything for a while.
Yeah, I think it's not, a lot of people in the beginning thought it was like a bad idea to put it on, like it'd be, something that got in the way of them playing. Yeah, but it's been fine. Like you can barely see it. Obviously, SAP with the new technology wants to advance the game in any way possible. So yeah.
Drew.
Yeah, I don't think it's too bad. I'm for the most part, I'm against having ads on jerseys and stuff like that. But the SAP ad, where it's placed, you don't really notice it that much, and it makes sense because it's SAP, because they do so much with hockey. You know, I think they run like one of the stat databases or something like that.
They run any stat database you look at on NHL.com is powered by SAP.
Okay, so that makes sense. But you know, if it was like Honda, that wouldn't make any, because it's like, what does Honda do except, you know, own the arena naming rights to where the Ducks play, kind of thing. So I think it works because it's SAP as well, as opposed to some other brand that doesn't do anything for hockey.
Kevin.
Puck Guy brings up on the chat, what if it translates to the NHL jerseys themselves, though? Would you be happy with that?
As long as it's not like a big Zepper sign, we're okay. Look at this SAP patch doesn't really bother me. Honestly, it doesn't even it took me a while to even notice where the hell it was. So if the NHL made a couple of extra bucks off of it, I really don't care. If I don't want the NASCAR jersey, right?
Yeah. The Czech Republic has the NASCAR jersey.
Right, yeah, I don't want
not Team Czech Republic, but the actual Czech league.
Right. I don't want when you look at the Spangler, or and you see all the ads on the Spangler sweaters and stuff. No one wants that. But that little patch, I have no issue with it, honestly, and I know I should be more against it, and I'm probably going to be deported, which I should have been done probably 8-9 times by now. I don't. You know what? If it made its way to the NHL sweater and it stopped there, I don't have a problem with it. Now that I've seen it, I really don't care.
You get one ad on the jersey.
One ad, and it stays that small, and it does. You know what I mean? You throw it up on the shoulder or whatever. I don't really. It really doesn't bother me. It's so small. It's so, like you said. It's not like you can see the guy. Like a big zoomed out shot, and all you see is ad.
Mm-hmm.
It really doesn't bother me. I mean, I hope that the NHL doesn't start incorporating, because I think it is a slippery slope, and you add one, and then they're gonna be like, well, we like this money, and let's put 2 on, and then let's put 3 on, and then next thing you know, you're in the Czech Republic. So nobody wants that. But just one patch, I really don't have an issue with it. I don't think it's a big deal. I think a lot of people would make a bigger deal out of it than it really needs to be, based on these World Cup sweaters. Because honestly, I haven't really heard, through all the exhibition games and all the chat on Twitter about these games, I haven't heard squat about the SAP patch.
And it's like you said, it takes a while to notice. I didn't notice it until I think I was watching the North America game earlier today. That's the first time I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed it right away, but I'd say after a couple of maybe 2-3 shots of the bench, I just became numb to it. I didn't care anymore. No.
Yeah. All right. So we're not going to deport you in. All right. So I have one more question before we get into the actual groups, the gimmick teams. Obviously, we talked about Team North America, Team Europe. Did you hate them to start? Has your opinion of them changed after watching the games? Slushy.
With North America, like I said, I don't really like the team. I think Johnny Gaudreau should be on the USA. I think this is just a team they needed, so they just had to make it up and whatever. But with Europe, there's a lot of countries in there. It's not a big deal with Europe.
Kevin.
I think did I mishear the question? Was it about the jerseys or about the team makeup?
The teams themselves, the gimmick teams.
Then I did mishear it.
Okay. I'm asking how you feel. Did you hate the idea of North American Team Europe to start? And if you did the games change your mind on the teams?
The games, no, because I was excited about the Team North America thing, not because it was Team North America, but because it was 23 under Team North America. So I really liked the idea of getting all the prospects together and basically having a prospect all-star team. I thought that was really cool. The Team Europe thing, I go back and forth on it, but hey, it does make them more competitive, even though they're probably the 7th best team of the 8. Sorry, Czech Republic.
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm okay with it.
Drew.
I didn't have much of an opinion on it to start. I was just kind of wanting to see and wait and see what happens. But man, that North American team, oh my, I could watch them for years at a time. That team is so fun to watch. Team Europe is crap, but Team North America is so fun to watch. But I think it's Team Europe. I feel like would have made more sense if the Czechs weren't a team and they could have pulled from the Czech Republic, because there's really not much talent on that Team Europe team, and there's not much talent on the Czech Republic either. So I think it would have been better and making it more competitive if you combine the two. Granted, that leaves you with 7 teams, but I mean, you got 7 teams in the Western Conference and or in the Pacific Division, and then you got 8, over in the Metro. So who cares about evenness, right?
Right. Yeah. Look, when I first started, I was just like, okay, the way they explained it to me made a lot of sense. They didn't have time to do a play-in tournament, and obviously, look at these guys. The league wants to showcase NHL players. They don't want to have a couple of teams of KHLers and NLAers and all of that. So I understood from that perspective where it's the NHL, it's the NHLPA combining to do this. They obviously want their guys in the tournament. That made a lot of sense. When and now watching North America play, it's kind of like okay. I didn't. Here's what I didn't like about North America. And it goes back to what Slushy said, was that I thought it would unfairly hurt the U.S., who has a far less deep player of pool of players to draw from. So when you're talking about a Johnny Gaudreau could absolutely be on that Team USA roster. I think Dylan Larkin could be on that Team USA roster as well, and maybe Jack Eichel could have made it. Now, with the way the team is constructed, maybe none of those guys make it. I think Gaudreau makes it regardless. But, I mean, it's not like they did themselves any favor assembling the team. So I feel less bad about it now.
The only thing to that is that, yeah, it definitely dilutes the player pool, but it also gives more U.S. players experience. So if the NHL decides to go back to the Olympics in 2018, but probably after that or never, who knows. But anyway, if they do go that route, the U.S. will actually be deeper in the long run. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that's a very good point. Like, it does kind of help the U.S. in that respect. I don't think that this will be, if they do the World Cup going forward, they're probably going to have a way to figure out which teams make it and which teams don't. The only option they had to do it this year, because they wanted to do it on a 2-year alternate with the Olympics, was they either had to arbitrarily pick teams and probably make people angry, because then when you pick, let's say, Switzerland and who else is good? Germany. Let's say Switzerland and Germany. And then Slovakia and Latvia and Slovenia and all these other countries are like, well, hey, what the hell? Norway, well, what the hell, right? And then you've damaged relationships. I think this way it's better. And, Team Europe's going to be, this is a team of still mostly NHL players. This team is going to be competitive. It is going to be a hell of a lot more competitive than a Switzerland or a Slovakia or a Norway or a Germany. Like, none of these teams would be even remotely competitive in this tournament.
Right.
Like, they'd get rolled. Like, even worse than Team Europe's going to try and get rolled, but we'll see. We'll see. But I think that if it wasn't for that, I think it would just be another punching bag. And I think that Team Europe, they got kind of ran around on by the kids on North America, but you get some of these guys when they start playing some of these other countries like the Finns and the Swedes. Guys are more teams that they're more familiar with individually. I think you might see more from them then, because you look at this team and we might say, yeah, it's one of the worst teams in the tournament, but that's still really good when you consider the caliber of players playing in the tournament. So let's get into Group A. We'll start and we'll kind of just go through our team by team nonsense and try and figure this all out. Group A, obviously, we'll start with Team USA. We're going to talk strengths. We're going to talk weaknesses. Who do you think starts in goal? Do you agree with who do you think starts in goal? And if you have any just thoughts specifically from their game so far, we'll go from there, and then we'll move on from that. So, Drew, I'm going to start with you. USA strengths, USA's weaknesses. Who do you think starting in goal, and do you agree? Let's go from there.
All right. The strengths, I think, is their well-roundedness. You see a lot of teams in this tournament who are either offense heavy or defense heavy. But I think the case with Team USA is they do have some decent skill in both the forward and defensive areas. With that being said, though, I think one of their weaknesses has to be their depth because, you have Abdelkader, you have Dubinsky. Those are controversial picks, if you want to call them that. And then you have the two Johnsons filling out the 6 and 7 spots on the blue line. So that can be a problem, especially when you go up against deeper teams like Canada or maybe eventually like North America, who are also well-rounded but are deeper as well. In terms of who starts in goal, it's going to be Jonathan Quick, no question. He played well in that first exhibition game against Canada, 2 Stanley Cups, all that stuff. But do I agree with the decision? I would have liked to see Corey Schneider. I think he's the best goalie considering the team he plays on and the number he puts up. But, Quick can steal a game for you. So you can't really go wrong with any of the goaltending options.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna pass the baton. Any thoughts from their exhibition game so far? Like anything that you saw that stood out to you as far as something that might help them in the tournament, something might hurt them in the tournament?
My big question for Team USA is if Ryan Kessler is going to survive until the end of it. Because after he gave that hit in the first game, he was being hunted in game 2. I think he took 2 solid hits, one from Joe Thornton, which is awesome. And they were definitely targeting him, letting him know that, hey, if you're gonna throw these kinds of hits on Shea Weber of all people, we're gonna hit you back.
And not like Shea Weber can't just kill him himself.
No one wants to go into the corner with Shea Weber.
It's funny that you bring that up because when that Joe Thornton got the penalty for that hit, I think I tweeted the YouTube clip from the Mighty Ducks, the second Mighty Ducks movie, where it was 2 minutes well worth it.
Oh, it definitely was.
Slushy, USA strengths, weaknesses, who starts in goal? Anything that stood out to you from the game so far?
For strengths, I got goaltending and big bodies. Obviously, the goaltending really saved them in the first game against Canada. Big bodies, Dustin Byfuglien, Brendan Dubinsky, Justin Abdelkader, Ryan Kessler, maybe. For weakness, I say their depth on defense. Eric Johnson, really, I don't like him on the team. I'd rather have Kevin Shattenkirk. Jack Johnson, I thought he was well in the first. I thought he played well in the first game, but still, we'll yet to see. For who starts in goal, it's pretty obvious by now. It's Jonathan Quick.
Kevin,
didn't Jack Johnson get the first goal in that game against Canada? That first game against Canada, something. The one that was in Columbus.
I
don't know.
It was pretty.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought Jack Johnson scored, and I just thought it was a cool moment for the fans in Columbus to kind of get behind their own player. Other than that, Jack Johnson shouldn't be on the team. but yeah, Shattenkirk all the way for sure. But hey, you never know. Maybe Shattenkirk did get approached, and he said, "No, I don't really. I want to take the summer off." I don't know, but. What Drew said about Corey Schneider, that's the guy I would like to see in net for USA, or at least given a chance. Jonathan Quick is Team USA's goalie until he's not, basically. Just like
Right.
Ryan Miller was their goalie, and then Quick overtook him. So my thing is Ben Bishop getting in there. It's good for him coming off the lower body injury from the playoffs, but I would definitely take Schneider over Bishop. Overall. So the fact that Schneider's not even dressing for these games, that's peculiar to me.
Well, I believe Schneider played the first and second period of game 2, and then Bishop came in relief in the third because they're doing that alternate goalie thing.
Again, thanks a lot, ESPN 3.
It does look like though, that Quick's going to be the starter, Schneider will be his backup, and Bishop will be the third string.
Can I add something to the goaltending?
Yep.
Right from the start, everyone was saying Quick was in goal and Quick was in, he's going to start. And I was like, wow, really? I felt like because of his resume and, considering last year, it wasn't great for Quick. So I was why? But in that first game, he really showed why He's going to be USA's #1 goalie. And from the second game, Corey Schneider wasn't great. And bad bounce on the second goal, but still. Couple shaky goal like with Bo Meesters. But, yeah, I think it's quick, though.
Yeah, the second Bouwmeester scores on you, your starting job is done.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, of course, Jay Bowie just scores, and then he took a penalty right after, and I'm like, oh, there's the Jay Bowie all know and love now. Yeah, I mean, look at strengths for me. I think that this is a heavy team. I think it was purposely built this way, and that is also its weakness. I think they left better players at home. I think that Jack Johnson and Eric Johnson could easily be replaced by Kevin Shattenkirk and Justin Falk and be that much better for it. Some of the exclusions up front for guys that they took, it's a heavy team, and I feel like it's specifically built to beat Canada, and I don't know if that will get them through the rest of the tournament. Like, yes, I think against Canada that does well. We saw it, and we saw that happen. Even though Canada was pretty, when USA turned it on, they really took it to Canada. I mean, Canada did dominate a lot of those. Even the first game, Canada dominated a significant portion of that. But the U.S. finished, and that's unfortunately that's what matters. That's the only thing I worry. I think it's their strength, and it's also their weakness. I think that yes, they're a heavy team, but I just feel like they left more skill at home, and I think that they could have done better with construction. I don't like the way this team was built, and apparently I'm not alone, because I know before the tournament started, I saw a lot of people on my Twitter feed that were just really like, to hell with this team. I'm not even caring until Lombardi's done making these teams. Who starts in goal? Yeah, I agree. Jonathan Quick. I have to agree with it right now. I think that, but I think it should be Schneider. It should be the one to go in if Quick can't handle. I think Schneider should be the go-to to go in, and I don't think it will be. I think it'll be Ben Bishop. I don't have an issue with Ben Bishop, but I think Schneider's better.
I like the points that you just brought up. And the other thing is the USA losing to Canada yesterday necessarily a bad thing? Because the last couple of tournaments that the U.S. have been involved in, they have skyrocketed off the start, and then once it gets to the elimination rounds, things start to drop off. And then they did get a silver in 2010.
2002.
Yeah, they got one in 2010, but 2014, the #1 seed didn't even medal.
Yeah. Again, I think that, it's a good point. And I think, it's an exhibition too, and it's hard to take too much, stock from an exhibition. Like, what are we going to expect when these games become real? I mean, these games are already like super intense, but you have to wonder if, like, when the games actually matter, does Carey Price not be terrible? Is Schneider not terrible? I think that it was, it's so hard to say what's going to happen based on when the actual games start than these exhibition games now. But I think anytime, the U.S. can get a victory against Canada, it's good. I mean, look, if you want to grow the game, the U.S. has to win some of these things. I mean, that's what's going to, you guys over there, you guys like winners. And silver's not good enough apparently, because no one talks about how close that game was in Vancouver, right? Like, I mean, it was an overtime goal. But that doesn't get talked about nearly enough, I think, and because it's not gold. And so I think, if the game's going to grow, the U.S. needs to win it. So on that topic, can the U.S. win this tournament? Just basically, obviously, we're going to say, we can say yes to multiple teams. Do you think that the U.S. can win this tournament? I'm just going to go around the table. I'm going to start with Drew.
Yes, I think they have a chance to win this tournament. Are they favorites? No. But, I mean, this team with the right kind of playing style, some lucky bounces, they definitely have a shot at this. They're not going to be one of those uncompetitive teams. They can make it to the final and have a chance against Canada.
Kevin.
Yes, they can compete. They're not the best team in the tournament, but they can get to the finals. If they're in the finals, obviously I was about to say it's best of one. It's best of three, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. See, I guess I do know something about the World Cup playoff format. But, yeah, I mean, the U.S., again, if they can get to the finals, I think they've got a great chance to win. but getting to that point is, I'd be afraid of an upset.
Slushy.
I think US does have a chance. The goaltending really has to be the best part for their team to get there. There are Pavelski, Kane, Parise really have to step up. They got to get their depth players going, like Pacioretty. I did not see him the whole 2 games, but yeah, if they can do all those 2 things, they have a really big shot at this.
Yeah, I like the USA's chances. I think that, this is a team, the way it's constructed. Now, again, I think that, I still think they could have iced a better team, but the way it's constructed, they might be able to give a team like the Russians fits. They can, they might be able to frustrate the Russians. They might be able to frustrate the Finns. I don't like their chances against Sweden. I don't like their chances against Canada. If they can somehow avoid those 2 teams, then yeah, they can definitely win this thing. I don't like a best of 3 versus Canada or Sweden, though. That's it. All right. Moving on to just quickly. I don't want to spend too much time on this because I know we're going to run long again because that's all we do. The Tortorella anthem thing. I kind of wanted to touch on this a little bit. I know it's a really dicey subject, and I don't want to get too. I'm not going to let this thing get derailed, is what I'm saying. So, I just kind of want your quick thoughts. I don't want to get into a huge political debate here. I don't have to punch Slushy in the face. I'm sure he doesn't want to get punched in the face. You know what? Just what did you guys think about it? Drew, go ahead. I want to feel how Americans feel about it, and then I'll tell you how a Canadian feels about it.
I mean, sitting for the anthem is freedom of speech. It's freedom of expression, whichever one you want to call it. So I don't think you should punish players for it. Does that mean you have to like it? No, you don't have to like it. You can hate it all you want. But I think it's morally wrong for Tortorella to actually bench somebody because of the way that they view their country.
Kevin.
I do think it's disrespectful to kneel or sit during the anthem. However, if you feel that you're being disrespected yourself, then, you have that right. And you know what? You should do that. However, my take on it for Team USA is you're representing Team USA. So if you don't want to do that for the country that you are actually representing, you're not part of the 49ers, you're not part of the Sharks, you're on Team USA. So if you don't want to stand for your anthem, then you should not be on Team USA.
Slush.
Exactly what Kevin said. You're playing for the United States of America. John Tortorella said the right thing for that. Just what Kevin said.
Yeah, you know what? From what Kevin said, I agree. Look, as far as this whole little phenomenon overall, I think I'm fine with it. There's a lot of things that, without getting too political, there's a lot better ways to respect veterans than standing for the anthem, like actually taking care of them. What Kevin said though is bang on. You're in the World Cup. You're representing Team USA. If you have a problem with your country like that, then why are you, if you're that ashamed of your country, then why would you represent your country? Why would you show up and wear, the stars and stripes? I don't like, I hold veterans in high regard. So obviously, do I like when people sit or whatever or talk through the anthem even over here? I don't like it, but I'm not going to. I don't think you should be shot for it or anything silly like that. Yeah, you need to be. You need to just, on Team USA, I get it. And I think that Tortorella is right. And the other thing is that there was so much talk going into the games about the construction, and then everything went away. And this is why I like John Tortorella, because he's a good coach. He took all the attention off of his team and put it squarely on himself. So when everyone's complaining, oh, I'm not watching this team until, Team USA is watching, and until Lombardi, whatever, all that kind of just went away because everyone was talking about Tortorella. And then there was no pressure on the States. They come out, they beat Canada. And then, everyone's not talking about all the negatives about this team anymore. Now, Canada would come back and win the next night, and but you still have that kind of feather under your cap. So, as much as it's like I hate when politics get brought into the sports, it's still it was a brilliant coaching move by Tortorella.
That's an interesting take on that.
Am I wrong?
No, you're not. By the way, while Ian was explaining all that, the reason why a couple of us busted up laughing during that was Vince G made a great comment in the chat about "You're playing for America," streamed on ESPN Deportes.
Being watched by Drew, me, and 5 other people.
So that was great.
That's fantastic. Good job.
Nice, Vince.
All right, so let's move on. Team Canada. Strengths, I'll start. Strengths, none. Weaknesses, none. Who starts in goal? I think it's going to be Price, but I think Holtby goes in if anything goes wrong. I think Holtby's the next guy to go in. I'm curious to see if Price gets any ice time in this last game against Russia. But after what Price did in Sochi, I can't see Price not starting as long as he can find his game. Look at their strengths. Obviously, they're a deep team. I think their only weaknesses is they know they're a great team, and some of sometimes they get a little too overpassy, and they try to get pretty and they try to be unselfish, and sometimes that works to their detriment. It's like watching Joe Thornton play with Joe Thornton, play with Joe Thornton, play with Joe Thornton, and nobody wants to shoot at the damn net. Look, it's. You can call me obnoxious, but I mean, they're the favorite to win. That's all there is to it. Go ahead, Drew. Tell me why I'm wrong.
I don't think you're wrong. I agree with you. Canada's strengths is everything, literally everything, except for maybe Jay Bouwmeester, I guess.
Yeah.
But they have
and even he scored.
Even he scored. They have every center in the freaking NHL on their team, and they're just stacked everywhere on the forward group, on the blue line, in net kind of thing. So I think their weakness, if I have to pick one, is the expectations, and not so much of, I guess, not really the pressure of it, but I mean it's trophy or bust for Canada. If they get beat by anyone in this tournament, it's an upset. And like Zach Devine said in our last episode, Canada hasn't had that great of a summer for international tournaments. They had that the World Junior Showcase, I forget what the abbreviation for it is, but they didn't do well in that. I don't know how they did in the World Championship, but this hasn't been a good summer for Canada, and losing this would only add to it.
Yeah, I don't think we did so good in the World Championships, to be honest.
Yeah. Who starts in goal? It's going to be Price in goal, but like you said, if he falters, it's going to be Holtby. And honestly, Crawford looked good against the Americans in Game 2. So even if they had to go to Crawford, you're not in trouble.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, because something that always really, really bothers me about Corey Crawford is he gets the Chris Osgood comparison. I don't think it's fair. I think that Crawford's a much better goalie than he's given credit for, even despite the fact that his team is ridiculously stacked and he has probably the best defense in the league sitting in front of him. Kevin.
Ian, you said exactly what I was going to say about Crawford, except you made it even better with that Chris Osgood comparison. That is beautifully put. It will be Carey Price, though. But I think you guys both just nailed Canada altogether. They're so solid. The one thing I'm going to take from Canada, from watching the last 5 minutes of yesterday's Canada-US game, was there was a shot on the bench of Logan Couture sitting next to John Tavares and Corey Perry, and Matt Duchene was leaning up against the bench. And just seeing those 4 guys together in one live shot, I was like, well, geez, Canada should win this game undefeated, and somehow every other team will get absolutely 0 wins. Even playing against each other, they'll somehow get 0 wins. That's how far and ahead Canada is in this tournament.
Slushy, say nice things about my country.
What you said, Ian, their strengths are really the players. I mean, they're all world-class players. Weakness, I think their depth on defense. If one of the six goes out, it's Jay Bodmeister, and you never know with him. Who starts in goal? I think it's going to be Carey Price. Just his past Sochi. So yeah.
All right, so moving on to from the powerhouses to the not so powerhouses, that brings us to the Czech Republic. The Czech Republic. It's like a
Czech-Mex
cereal.
Republic.
Yeah, the Czech Republic. Again, strength, weaknesses. Who do you think starting in goal? Did you see anything you like from the exhibition games? Just before we get into this, though, I want to bring up that the Peter Sobotka injury is not as bad as originally thought. He is scheduled to return in Wednesday's exhibition match. So let's go back to strengths, weaknesses, whatever. Slushy, I'll start with you.
For sure. Sorry, I thought I was on mute.
Oh, that's right.
For strengths, I say physical demon. Polak, Udis, Schuster. All guys who can shut you down. For weakness, I say offensive demon. They really don't have a guy from the point who could, score for them. Who starts in goal? I'd say it's a coin toss between Mrazek and Neuwirth, but I say it'd be Neuwirth.
Okay. Drew.
Their strengths are their ability to get injured better than anyone else. But, I mean, are there really any strengths on this team? I mean, who are their best players? The Mahalik brothers? And that's, I mean, I like Milan Mahalik, but, I mean, if he's your best player, it's not that good. Their weaknesses, pretty much everything. The forwards aren't great. The defense isn't great. The goaltending is okay. They have Mrazek, and that's pretty much it. You can go to Neuwirth if you really need to. Who starts a goal? It's going to be Mrazek, and like Slushy said, you go to Neuwirth after, but Mrazek's definitely going to be that starter. It's just a shame that we're not going to get to see how good Mrazek can be because of the team that's in front of him.
What I like about the Czech Republic, or what I find intriguing about them, is just the guys on their roster. You have Jakub Nekladl, for example, and he was an AHL defenseman last season. However, he's one of those borderline seventh-man NHL guys or a top AHL defenseman. He's currently without a contract, and he's not on a tryout because of this tournament. So a guy like him really needs to put a stamp in every game that he plays in hopes of being in the NHL next year. Otherwise, he'll probably get a nice KHL deal, which is, I guess, fine for him. What you guys brought up about the lack of depth, especially at forward, that's the big problem with Czech hockey right now. Me following European hockey, the Czech Extraliga, the talent pool has dropped so dramatically to even teams that were powerhouses for years are getting relegated just because the program is dying over there. And the KHL is sucking up a lot of these good Czech players. So it's a shame considering that less than 20 years ago they won a gold medal in the Olympics. But yeah, it's just not good right now for them. Oh, and Vladimir Sobotka is days away from signing with the St. Louis Blues.
Days away from being weeks away?
Days away from being weeks away. Actually, him getting hurt I thought was a good thing because the way European teams operate some weird thing where a guy gets hurt, they can get released, which kind of makes it pointless to have a contract in the first place. So if Sobotka got hurt here, he technically could get released from his KHL team, and that'll push him to sign with the Blues finally in days.
Months,
in days.
Weeks. We'll see.
Yeah.
The thing overall for me with the Czech Republic, and there's a couple of other countries that are kind of in this bump. They have like they just have like a gap of generation, like in their generation, right, where the talent pool's kind of dropped off. You have some guys coming up. You have, your Hurdles and a few other players that are starting to kind of get up. But there's this huge gap between that old guard and, the new guard. And there's just kind of mediocrity in between it. And I think that's a big problem with the Czech Republic. Their strengths, I think, even though they still have some decent forwards. Let's not, they still have some decent forwards. Their weaknesses, they're not deep. They just have no depth. The Czech Republic, I mean, the only reason that they get to be a team and they're not thrown into the Team Europe bubble is because they're just always there. I don't recall a time in international, like whether it be the World Championships or the Olympics or wherever, where the Czech Republic's ever been in danger of being relegated. And I think that's the only reason why they're who they are, and Team Europe is who they are. It's a mess. I don't know. I mean, to me, it's because of the depth that Team Europe gets by being the Voltron of hockey, is that they have more depth to draw on. I think Team Czech Republic sits underneath them because of that, and I don't think it's necessarily fair. So bringing us on to Team Europe. Strengths, weaknesses, who do you think he starts in goal? Oh, I didn't answer who starts in goal. I agree, Mrazek. Europe, strengths, weaknesses, who starts in goal? So let's go. Drew.
Their strengths is one man, Andrzej Kopitar. Other than that, they're almost as bad as the Czechs are. Weaknesses, again, there's not depth at all, and this team isn't remotely threatening to anyone in this tournament unless you're the Czech Republic. That's the only team I could see Team Europe beating. I say as Team Europe probably upsets US. Hopefully not, though. Who starts in goal? It's going to be Halak. I mean, there may have been some sort of goalie controversy with Grice, but Grice let in 4 goals on 8 shots and then got chased. So that's out the window. Grice is not going to be taking over that starting role anytime soon. So it's definitely going to be Halak.
Kev, go ahead.
I watched bits and pieces of Europe versus North America, and one thing they brought up was Zdeno Chara. Even though Roman Josi is one of the best defensemen in the world, Zdeno Chara is one of the most featured defensemen on this team, and yet he's getting just like, he cannot compete with this Team North America team that's built on speed. And if he's your anchor of your defense, you're in trouble. But I do take offense to Kopitar being the only guy on this team, because they've got Zuccarello and they've got Hossa. So they've got one line. One line.
One whole line.
One whole line.
Kopitar.
Yeah.
Slush, what do you got? Are you there?
Yeah, I am. For strengths, I got 2A players with Kopitar, Hossa, Zuccarello, Nielsen. Weakness, depth, speed, no speed at all in that lineup. He starts in goal. Block, he's always good in big games.
My strengths for the Team Europe, I think they're better than they showed against North America, and the big reason for that, I'll get to that in a minute. But I mean, it's not just you say one line there, but I mean, they've got some dynamic young players on this team too. You've got guys like you said, like Roman Josi, who's 26 now. You got Leon Draisaitl, who's just not even close to where he's going to end up. And then you got complimenting guys like Hossa, Gaborik, Bodker. You got Niederreiter there. There's the problem with this team for me is the weakness is the separation in age. There's such an age gap. It's either they're all like retiring or starting. There's not very much in between. And you're right, when you look at like the defense, who are they leaning on too hard on defense, even though they've got a guy like Roman Josi? They're looking at guys like Zdeno Chara and like Mark Streit. Like, these guys are old. These guys are not going to keep up with some of the younger teams in this tournament. Halak definitely starts, but I think, that's, if you're looking at what the problem with this team is this huge gap between the young and the old on this team.
That's interesting. I didn't think about that, because you're totally right. There are a lot of older people on this team. Like, you have Char, you have Gaborik, kind of thing. It's like they're going to break a hip while they're playing. But yeah, there's not many of those people who are at their peak, kind of thing. So that's an interesting take on it, Ian. I never thought of that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Guys, let's start with Group B. We'll start with the Russians. Strengths, weaknesses. So Team Czech Republic, Team Europe, they're not, they can't win the tournament, right? Like no one thinks that these teams can win.
No.
Let's just say no and move on. All right, Team Russia, strengths, weaknesses, who starts in goal? Any thoughts so far on them, if you have them? Kevin, I'm going to start with you.
The only thing on Russia is the fact that this is the first tournament in a really long time that they are not half KHL players. I think Shapachev is the only player. Oh, and they have Dodonov. But so they've got two guys from the KHL, if you're not counting Zaitsev, who's coming over to the NHL this year. And Teligan. Okay, whatever. But I'd like to see how Russia is with this kind of transitional period. At least they're finally making a change. Like they realize like this half non-NHL team is not working out for them. And I'm not saying like the NHL must be always, but hey, it's the best league in the world for a reason, so use the players that are there.
I want to throw another question in before I throw it to anyone else. No Kovalchuk, no Radulov. Surprise?
Well, weren't they the guys that were the cause of the locker room split 2 years ago in the Olympics?
Yeah, they might be. I don't know.
I thought that was the rumor. It was like the Kovalchuk Radulov side was making a huge separation in the locker room, and so the coach was losing all control of everything. So I'm not really that surprised, actually.
All right, Drew, all the questions. Oh, who starts, Kevin? Who starts?
It's gotta be Bobrovsky, but I would like to see Vasilevsky. I think it's Bobrovsky, though. Bobrovsky!
You're off the case, Bobrovsky!
That's hard. All right, Drew, go ahead.
I'll start with the question you threw over to Kevin. Am I surprised about Radulov and Kovalchuk? Not really, and it kind of falls in line with their strengths because they're already stacked offensively. They have so many, natural goal scorers. They have people with great hands. So, I mean, they can put up goals upon goals upon goals on you, and there's not really much you can do to stop them. But their defense is not that impressive. I mean, when you think best on best tournament, do you think Marchenko, Emelin, and Kulikov? Because I don't. So that's going to be the big thing for them. And it's like I said at the beginning, where there's going to be offense-heavy teams and defense-heavy teams, and Russia's definitely one of those offense-heavy teams. In terms of who starts in goal, I think it should be Bobrovsky. He had that great save against the Czechs to keep Russia ahead in that first game, a game that was probably way too close than it should have been. And really, he's a decent goaltender, especially when you consider his numbers in the team he plays on. He has a .920 save percentage with the Columbus Blue Jackets. I think that's pretty impressive. If Bobrovsky messes up, I think you go to Varley. Although I agree with Kevin, I do really like Vasilevsky. I'm curious to see how he'd do in this kind of tournament.
Slushy.
For the question about Kovalchuk and Radulov, they're just not really team players. It's not a big surprise to me. For strengths, I got dynamic players. They have Panarin, Ovechkin, Tarasenko, just to name a few. For weaknesses, I say clutch goaltending, because their goaltending really hasn't been clutch in years past in the Olympics. Obviously, Bobrovsky's save in the first game was really clutch. Who starts in goal? I say Bobrovsky. He really has he's really been inconsistent in Columbus ever since he's gotten the Vezina, but I give him the nod.
Okay. Here's for Russia for me. Obviously, the strengths of their offense. Is there a better offensive group in the tournament? Maybe Canada, but even then, I really like Russia's offense. Kovalchuk, I'm surprised isn't on the team. In my opinion, and maybe I'm wrong, but in my opinion, Kovalchuk is the best player not in the NHL. Well, maybe second best now that Datsuk's over there. I think Kovalchuk's the best guy not playing in the NHL. I can see Radulov not making the team because, I'm sure they're a little bit sour that he jumped from the KHL to the NHL. So there's probably some politics at play there. Kovalchuk, I know we had some problems in the playoffs. I know you got sat and in the KHL playoffs. I know there's some issues there. So maybe, that's probably what's going on. You have to figure one of those guys, if someone on Russia gets injured, one of those guys is coming in. I think Varlamov might start. I thought Varlamov played okay in the action that he saw, from what I saw, which I didn't see much because I was watching mostly the Finnish-Swedish game. But it's hard. Bobrovsky, Varlamov, it doesn't really matter. I think both of them will do a good job. I really like Vasilevsky, but I think in a tournament like this, there's just no way you're putting, Russia needs to win one of these things soon. I talk about how the U.S. needs to win. Russia needs to win one of these soon. I can't see them going to a 22-year-old goalie to try and win something. Their weakness is their defense, and it's because of their defense. Could they win this tournament? Yes. Of the teams that could win this tournament, they'd be on the bottom of my list. I think that they have a defense that if they face off against a team like Canada or Sweden, which just has a ridiculous defense, I think that they can smother the offense out of Russia. And then what do you got after that? You can't keep the puck out of your own, you can't get the puck into the offensive zone, and you can't keep the puck out of your own net. That defense doesn't scare me at all. So that is my take on the Russians. Let's move on to Sweden. Strengths, weaknesses, who starts? Blah, 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 blah. Slushy, I'll start with you.
For Sweden, I got their strengths as goaltending and defense. Obviously, the defense is stacked with Beckman, Larson, Edmund, Carlson. For goaltending, they have Henrik Lundqvist. He's arguably one of the best in the tournament. Who starts in goal? It's Lundqvist.
Yeah. All right, Kevin.
Sweden has a lot of balance, especially up front. Backstrom, I think, is amazing. As much as we dog on the Vancouver Canucks, they have the Sedins and Louis Eriksson on a line which will be the only line on the Vancouver Canucks this year. And their defense is amazing. Lundqvist needs to stay healthy. And if he doesn't, they're either going to have to bring in Tommy Salo or the Swedish chef to take care of the net, because I am not a believer in Jonas Enroth. And Markstrom's good, but he's inconsistent. So I expect a good showing out of Sweden, but they're a little fragile.
Yeah, Drew, go ahead.
Like I said, their strengths, definitely that defense, because that back end is unbelievable. And this is, again, where I get into you get those offense-heavy and defense-heavy teams. Sweden is a defense-heavy team. They're stacked on the back end, but I'm not huge on their forward group. I mean, your top six, I think, is going to be okay, but then you get into, Kruger, Backlund, and Soderberg, and they may be, okay NHL players, but this is a best-on-best tournament. Do you want them in your bottom six as opposed to, say, Canada, who has Joe Thornton as their fourth-line center? And it doesn't compare. Who starts in goal? It has to be Lundqvist, because, like Kevin said, you're going to have to find the Swedish chef after that, because there's no one really there. And Ross hasn't really secured a great starting job. Markstrom, same thing. They're both really backup caliber goalies. So Sweden's very lucky that Lundqvist didn't get injured, because there was that scare. And hopefully for them, he stays healthy throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, obviously strength is is behind the blue line all the way back to goal. As long as Henrik Lundqvist can stay healthy, I don't think I might even go as far as to say that Sweden might have the best defense in the tournament when you consider Canada rolled out Jay Bouwmeester and we're missing Duncan Keith. When you consider that trade-off, I think that Sweden might actually have the best defense in the tournament. I don't want to say their forward group's a weakness, though. I think their fragility for sure is a weakness, but there's still enough skill on this forward group to get the job done. I mean, you got Landeskog, you got Raquel, who I think is criminally underrated going into this tournament. You know, a lot of people don't know a lot about Raquel because they don't watch a lot of West Coast hockey, and he's, you know, he's a good player, and I feel like, you know, I think Silverberg is a nice guy to have probably in your bottom six, but you still got guys like the Sedins can still produce. That last exhibition game they played, like the Sedins and Louis Eriksson were just silly. So I don't, you know, this team can definitely win. I think if I stacked it out and I was being truly honest with myself, you know, my favorite's Canada, my second favorite's probably Sweden at this point, and then I don't know who I'd pick between the USA and Team North America. Yeah, I just, you know, obviously it's Lundqvist and net. It's not even close. There's no one even close to being near apparent there. And that's something that Sweden needs to be a little nervous of, because I'm not a big Jacob Markstrom guy at all. I don't think very highly of him. Maybe he's going to start coming into his own, but I mean, he took so long to finally break into the NHL, you know, after just putting stupid numbers up in the AHL and then just couldn't make that jump forever. And now Vancouver's so terrible, I don't know if he's good or bad. Like, I just don't know. All right, so moving on, the next team on my list will be Team Finland. Strengths, weaknesses, blah, 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 blah. Drew, I'm going to start with you.
Their strength, I think the biggest strength is in goal. It's Tuukka Rask. You know, he did have an off year last season, but he is an excellent goaltender. I mean, a career .924 save percentage is absolutely ridiculous. Now, granted, a good portion of that is back when, you know, Boston was good, but he's definitely someone who can steal a game for you, and that's what you want in this tournament, especially when you get into, you know, the semifinals, which are single elimination. But the weakness, I think it's everything else. And the forward group, I'm not that impressed with. Their defense lacks that top tier talent, i.e., they don't have the guy. I mean, their top pair was Mata and Vatanen. Maybe, I'm not sure what D pairs are rolling out, but if those are your two best defensemen, I mean, they're okay, they're good, but they're not best on best good. Especially when you consider Canada, who has Burns, Doughty, and Pietrangelo on that back end. So who starts in goal? It has to be Rask. Had a great NHL career, and Rinne has really gone downhill. He used to be, you know, a top 5 goaltender in the league, but he's not anymore. Ever since that injury, he hasn't been the same.
Slushy.
For strengths, I said it with Team Europe, two-way players. Laterra, Jokinen, Koivu, Filppula, Barkov, maybe Donskoy a little bit. Weakness, it's for me, it's goaltending. Rask gave up 5 goals last game. Rinne gave up 3 goals the first game, and I believe the third goal is really weak. Who starts in goal? I say it's going to be Rinne. I mean, like last year, it was tough for him because he faced a lot of shots, but, you know, I think he can carry this Finland team.
Is the goaltending weak on Finland, or is it the team that's in front of them, Jake?
Well, I mean, like the goals they gave up. I mean, 5 for Rask, although 1 was off a player. Yeah, it's part of the team too, but okay. I think, you know, your goalies need to make the big saves at the big times in these tournaments. Okay. I haven't seen it.
All right.
I just want to take a second and say that Kevin just switched the jersey in the background.
You noticed.
Sneaky.
Swomy, baby.
1 second.
Okay, my take on Finland is they are in a transitional period. As much as I love my Finns, it's going to be tough for them because they no longer have Selanne or Koivu. This is the first time in 25 years that they haven't had Selanne and Koivu spearheading their top line, with former Shark Billy Peltonen for most of that. But that's the thing about Finland. They had guys like Ville Peltonen as their top line, and they medal all the time. So even though, they're not a sexy-looking team, their defense is extremely mobile, but they're also extremely inexperienced. And some guys have NHL. Vatanen's been there a couple of years, but Mata's 22, Poka's 22, Ristolainen's 21, Lindell's 22, and then the forwards are pretty much the same thing. They got a whole bunch of young forwards. They got Patrick Laine on their top line. He's 18, never even played in the NHL. So that's their weakness. You mentioned the pressure on Canada. There might be some internal pressure on Finland for the fact that without those experienced top guys, Laine being their main guy as an 18-year-old, we'll see how he handles it.
So far, not well.
Yeah.
I don't feel like when I've watched the players, like going into the draft, I was a big Laine's better than Matthews, and the only reason you would take Matthews being the Maple Leafs is because you desperately need a center. Otherwise, Laine is the guy every day and twice on Sunday. And so far, Matthews hasn't been spectacular, but I've noticed Matthews a lot more than I've noticed Laine so far. For Laine being a guy who, is Mr. Highlight Reel, basically, right? Very quiet so far. There's a lot of pressure on him, obviously, going and playing this tournament. This isn't the World Championships. This is as it gets, and I think that the inexperience is definitely an issue. You look at this team, though. The strengths are it's a good team. There's nothing spectacular about it, like everyone said. But it's a solid team from top to bottom. There's nothing super sexy, but there's nothing terrible about it. I don't have an issue with it. I think that, regardless of who they go with, and I think it's going to come down to this last exhibition game to determine it. If it's going to be Rask or Rinne. I don't know, who starts. It could be either one. I think I think no matter who starts, we're going to see a hell of a good temper tantrum if something goes wrong. Whether it's Pekka Rinne or Tuukka Rask, both are pretty awesome for temper tantrums. But, it could be either one of them. But there's nothing super exciting about this team. Although if I'm a Finn, I'm excited because when all these guys come into their prime, this is going to be a scary-ass team.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not scary yet. But when some of these guys get older, I mean, you look at some of this team, 25, you have Aho on the team, 19, Barkov's awesome, 21.
Barkov's awesome.
Right, 21. You just keep going, right? Like Laine 18, Teravainen 22. Like this team's only going to get better. Donskoy 24, and Donskoy, they've been trying to basically run a lot of the offense on the power play through Donskoy. So, yay Donskoy. So yeah, I think I don't like Finland's chances to win. I mean, this is a team that shouldn't meddle in, like Kevin says, they always seem to do it.
They
so
always do.
This is definitely a dark horse team, but I just can't throw myself behind them and say, yeah, this team's going to win it all. I just they're a good team, but they're not a great team, and there's too many great teams in this tournament. Which brings us to our last team, and then we will get the heck out of here because we've gone way too long, as always. North America.
Thank you for watching and listening.
Yes, and always I appreciate you guys watching and listening. I know it's sometimes we go on too long, and we're gonna fix this when the season starts.
Actually, this is part of our plan that Sunday Night Football would be over by now, so that people will jump on and catch the tail end of our.
That's right. That's why we're still running. Okay. Strengths, weaknesses. Any thoughts so far? Who starts in goal? Let's go. Slushy, are you there? All right, Kevin.
Yeah, I am.
Oh, sorry, Slushy's right there. All right,
He's back.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute for there.
that's okay.
It's a strength to see skilled players. I mean, there's a lot of young skilled players on the team. Weakness, it's a cliche, but experience. They don't have a lot of experience on the team. Maybe Saad is the most experienced guy on there. He starts in goal. Matt Murray, just with the playoffs he had, and he had a shot in the first game, albeit not a lot of shots on him. But yeah, and just thoughts on the exhibition games. Their speed is unbelievable, and their foot's on the gas pedal at all times.
Okay, go ahead, Kevin.
What I like their goaltending a lot, and I know that I think I'm the only fan of John Gibson on the panel. But
that you are.
Even with that, I think Connor Hellebuck should be the starting goalie. The guy put up almost a .950 save percentage. 2 years ago in the World Championships. It's not a tournament this dynamic, the World Championships, but still, those are impressive numbers. So he can handle the pressure. I want to see how he does here. And I know Winnipeg wants to see how he does because they're dying for some goalie to step his game up. But it's a fun team to watch. We've talked about it throughout the show today, and I expect a third or fourth place finish out of them because I think they're that good and they have nothing to lose.
Drew, go ahead.
Yeah, definitely agree with the strengths. That speed is unbelievable. They're just flying out there, and I don't even think it's because they're playing Europe. I think it's because they have, Dylan Larkin, the fastest skater to ever play in the NHL, on their fourth line. That's how fast this team is. And the other thing is I like their confidence. You see some of the quotes that are coming out of there, like Goodrow got a question about what about the physical play? And he responded with, you can't hit what you can't catch. And I think that's really good for this team because they need that. They are the young guns. Coming into this, they may have been considered underdogs, but they have looked excellent. The weakness, like Slushy said, it's the experience. Granted, it's a short tournament, so I'm not sure if it's really going to matter that much. Now, none of them except Murray know what it's like to play in huge games, but I mean, it's one game elimination in the semifinals, and then it's best of 3. So it's not like you're playing 28 games over the course of 2 months. You're playing, 7 over the course of 2 weeks. So I don't think that experience is going to have as much of a factor as a lot of people are placing on it. Who starts? Matt Murray, although I totally agree with Kevin. I love Connor Hellebuck. He's going to be an incredible NHL goaltender. I got his player card somewhere up behind me. But yeah, Matt Murray's the guy. He just won the Stanley Cup, and it's his spot to lose.
Yeah, the thing that really bothers me about when people talk about this team and they're like, oh, they're gonna get smoked because like all these guys, and yet how many times did we say this show alone? This is a young man's game. And you look at, so maybe some of them don't have big experience, although I'd argue Brandon Stott also has some pretty good experience on big games.
Oh, yes.
So I think that there is some experience, but these guys, this is what they've done. Like, these guys aren't far removed from playing in World Junior tournaments. And, like with maybe the World Junior doesn't get as much publicity outside of Canada as it should, but I mean, to those guys, that's a huge tournament. So these guys are kind of used to the situation already. And you also look at like when some of these guys have won, like some of the big stars of the games, when they won their first Stanley Cup, you're talking about guys like, Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane were both on their entry-level contracts when they won their first cup. So I like this team. I think that this team can surprise people. Inexperience is obviously going to be a weakness on, I think, defense especially. I think that some players are going to have their way with them. I thought that, Seth Jones made some interesting plays today that were just based on just being pressured by more experienced players. But this team is so fast. It's so fun to watch. I hope it. I would not be sad to see this team win it all. Can they? I think they can. Will they? I think they're going to be hard-pressed to beat some of the bigger teams. Like, I want to see how they do in the round robin against Sweden.
Yeah, it's going to be the big question because we haven't seen them play against a good team yet.
Powerhouse.
I think they play Finland on Wednesday, I think. So I'm looking forward to that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that is our World Cup preview.
And we managed to get through that without mentioning Connor McDavid. So that's how exciting the rest of the team is for North America, by the way.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Look at it's going to be a fun tournament. There's still a lot of people are like really ho-hum about the tournament, and I understand, like, from Kevin's perspective, when you're not, living in the land of maple syrup where it's on like every television available. But like some of these people, like even up here though, they're just kind of like pooping on the tournament. And these are exhibition games. These exhibition games have been some of the best hockey that I have watched. And the last hockey I watched was the Sharks playing in the Stanley Cup Finals. So It's been exciting hockey, and it's going to be, that's fun. It's going to be, it's going to be awesome when these games actually matter. And just let's hope everyone makes it out alive, because none of these guys are taking any prisoners. If you like what you heard on the show today, again, Pucknology Writers Room on YouTube, subscribe. Pucknology podcasts on iTunes, SoundCloud, whatever. Subscribe there. Get all the Pucknology podcasts. We thank you for listening to us on this night. I know we run a little long. We're going to get these cut off a little bit once we get going. We're talking about ways to kind of trim down the time a little bit. I think sometimes I put little things that I think are going to be little, and then we talk way too much about them. So we'll probably have to stop doing that. Aside from that, though, thank you for watching. I know there's a bajillion other things you could have been watching today other than us. So for those that did take the time to watch us, thank you very much. For those that listened afterwards, thank you very much. I'm going to go around the table quick, let everyone say their last words, and we are going to get the heck out of here. Slushy, any final words?
This tournament's going to be really fun, and it's really kind of uncertain who's going to win. You have your favorites, but there's still teams that can really surprise.
Kevin?
I'm at Kevin Lacey 22, and I'd like to thank the more than 3,600 people that have read my article on the San Jose Barracuda on Pucknology.net. That is basically 4 times the number of the average attendance at the Barracuda games, and that's the whole point of the article, is they need to step it up. I'm a huge fan. You can see the jersey behind me, but step it up, Barracuda.
Drew?
When did he change the jersey back? How do you do this? My name's Drew Weber. You can find me at Puck Over Glass on Twitter. I tweet a lot about analytics and about news that I'm probably 90 seconds late on because I have to stream it on ESPN3. But this tournament's going to be a lot of fun to watch. If you get a chance to catch a North America game, please watch it because that team is so much fun. You do not want to miss it.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. And it sucks because I know for you guys it sucks because I'm in the Eastern time zone, so all these games are on at I'm gonna miss the afternoon games this week, unfortunately. But I understand that afternoon game for me is noon for you, and then the other games are on 4, so I feel your pain. I am at I Read Pucknology. You can find me on Pucknology writing stuff. You can find me on all the other Pucknology shows. You can also find me on Last Word on Hockey, where I will be previewing the Edmonton Oilers tomorrow. Big article coming out. Hope everyone likes that. Other than that, any feedback you guys have for us, please, DM me, tweet at you, whatever. Any feedback you guys have. We always want feedback to make the show better. I want to figure out how to get you guys more involved in the show. So if you have any ideas for that, let me know. And thank you again for watching, and have everyone have a good night. Bye.